you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit, and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Living the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful sunny San Diego, and welcome back to the Living the Dream podcast. We're going to start the weekend strong by covering how to properly care for ourselves based on what works best for us individually and in order to reach for our health, fitness, and wellness goals, and in order to live your dream life. And all week long, we've been exploring one question: how's the water? On Mindset Monday, we talked about how the invisible environment surrounding us quietly shapes our habits, health, beliefs, and identity. On Training Tuesday, we explored how your environment acts like an unseen coach, either helping movement become normal or placing unnecessary obstacles between you and exercise. On Wellness Wednesday, we talked about how your nervous system, it lives somewhere. Light, noise, technology, relationships, all that becomes signals that influence how alert, guarded, connected, or calm we feel. And then on Fuel Up Friday, we walked into the kitchen and looked at how visibility, convenience, preparation, portions, and defaults begin influencing our food choices before hunger even arrives. But today I want to close out the week by talking about self-care. But I don't want to give you another list of things to buy. I don't want to tell you that a self-care day is all about a bubble bath, a massage, a vacation, a candle, or a face mask. Those things definitely can be amazing, wonderful. I love a good Thai massage. I love getting outside. I love the ocean. But self-care is bigger than any individual activity. Here's the question that I want us to explore today. What if self-care isn't about escaping from your environment? What if it's also about creating an environment you don't constantly need to escape from? Think about the language that we often use. I need to get away. I need a vacation. I just need to shut everything off. I need a break from my life. I need one day where nobody needs anything from me. And sometimes that is exactly what we need. There's nothing wrong with traveling, taking time off, going to a spa day, spending a weekend somewhere quiet, or just temporarily disconnecting from responsibilities. But if your only experience of peace occurs when you leave your normal, average life, that may be information worth paying attention to. Because eventually the vacation, it ends. The massage ends, the retreat ends, your drive home after the amazing day off, it ends. Once you get home from whatever you're doing to escape, you open the door, then you turn your phone back on, and you re-enter the same environment that exhausted you in the first place. So maybe the deeper version of self-care is not only, how do I recover from my life? Maybe it is also, how can I build more recovery into the life that I actually live? We talked about this earlier in the week. One of my favorite hours of the month is teaching a yin yoga deep restorative stretch class at Sweat Circuit. People walk into that same studio where earlier in the day, someone has been lifting heavy weights and sprinting on the treadmill and sweating and challenging themselves. But for the yin yoga class, we transform the environment. We turn the lights down, we change the music, the pace changes, the tone of my voice changes, the room becomes quieter. People begin moving more slowly. Nobody's trying to beat a score or get a certain amount of calories. Nobody's racing the clock. Nobody needs to impress anyone else. And for that hour alone, the environment gives everyone permission to release the need to perform, and to just be. And almost every time someone tells me afterwards, I didn't realize how much I needed that. And I love to hear it. It always stays with me when people say that, because many people don't realize how depleted they've become until they finally enter an environment where depletion is allowed to speak. They thought they needed to just be more flexible. They needed to stretch a little bit. But what they may have really needed was a place where nothing was being demanded from them. That is one of the most valuable things an environment can provide, a signal that you are allowed to stop performing. So much of modern life asks us to produce. So much of modern life asks us to respond, improve, achieve, solve, answer, post, track, manage, optimize. Even wellness can become another performance. Did I meditate long enough this week? Did I get the perfect sleep score? Did I complete my breath work? Did I close my rings? Did I hit my steps? We can become so committed to optimizing our lives that even rest begins feeling like another assignment that we might fail. And that is not restoration. That is productivity wearing comfortable clothes. True self-care sometimes means doing nothing. True self-care sometimes means doing something without converting it into a score. Walking without measuring the distance. Sitting outside without listening to any educational content. Stretching without trying to improve your flexibility. Eating without a calculator that tells you your macros. Watching a sunset without taking a photo of it. Spending time with someone without checking your phone and being present. Doing something simply because it makes you feel human. Not because it improves your performance, not because it advances your career, not because it earns you approval of someone else. Because being alive is also allowed to contain experiences that do not need to become achievements. One of the things that I love about going to the ocean is that it changes my sense of scale. I call it the cosmic scale. My problems don't necessarily disappear. The responsibilities are still there. The studio still needs things. Messages still have to be answered. Decisions still have to be made. But when I look at that horizon and I hear the waves and I feel the air and see something so much larger than the problem that's currently filling my mind, it's impossible for perspective not to change. For a moment, I'm not standing in the center of the entire universe trying to control everything. For a moment, I'm just one tiny person standing beside a giant, vast ocean that covers most of this life-filled rock that we call Earth, that is flying, hurtling through space, made up of trillions of cells that have organized to become a being with consciousness. I'm just one person taking a breath. Now, that doesn't solve every problem, but damn, sometimes perspective, it is part of the solution. Research on nature exposure doesn't suggest that walking outside magically cures every form of stress, anxiety, or depression. Life is more complicated than that. But studies do suggest that natural environments can support stress recovery and improve aspects of mood. and well-being for many people. And I think one reason nature can feel restorative is that it offers a different kind of attention. The ocean isn't sending you a notification. A forest isn't asking you to respond immediately. The sunset doesn't need an answer before the end of the business day. Nature can hold your attention without constantly making demands of it. And nowadays, that is rare and super valuable, in my opinion. But I also recognize something important. Not everyone lives near an ocean. Not everyone has an easy access to a beautiful trail. Not everyone can leave work in the middle of the day and walk through a park. Self-care cannot require a perfect location. Sometimes your restorative environment is much, much smaller. Sometimes your restorative environment is one chair beside an open window. Maybe it's on a porch. Maybe it's a corner of a bedroom. Maybe it's a quiet route around the block. Maybe it's just a shower without the phone. Maybe it's inside your parked car after a long day before you walk into the house. It could be a bench near work, a few minutes of morning sunlight, a pair of headphones and a calming playlist. It could be a room where the lights are just a little softer. You do not need an entire retreat center or the Pacific Ocean. Sometimes you need 1 square foot of your world that asks nothing from you. I like to call these spaces micro sanctuaries. Micro sanctuaries. A micro sanctuary is a small place or ritual that your mind begins associating with slowing down. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive. All it needs is to simply be intentional. A chair where you can read, but you do not answer work emails in that chair. A section of the patio where you drink your coffee in the morning, but you do not bring the news to that section of the patio. Maybe it's your evening shower. Maybe it's your walk along the beach. Maybe it's 10 minutes inside your car before you transition into family life. Maybe it's the first 5 minutes after you wake up before touching your phone. When you repeatedly pair a location or a ritual with calm, the environment begins becoming a cue. As you enter that space that you have marked off for yourself, your body starts to learn. Your brain starts to neurologically wire. This is where we come to settle down. This is where we come to breathe. This is where no one is going to ask us to perform or be anything. This doesn't mean that the sanctuary has to be perfectly silent. It's not a place of silence. Some people restore through music. Some do need silence. Some need solitude, but others feel restored by connection. Some need stillness. Others feel better with walking or moving. Remember life rule number 1, do what works for you. Your sanctuary should support your nervous system. It does not need to match someone else's Instagram version of peace. Maybe meditation helps you. Maybe sitting still makes you feel anxious, but slowly walking helps. Maybe journaling works. Maybe cooking is your thing. Maybe gardening, prayer, music, reading, breathing, talking to a close friend. Maybe it's playing with your dog. The exact practice matters less than the effect. Do you leave your practice feeling more grounded, more connected, more present, more like yourself? Then pay attention. That is useful information. We know your home environment matters too. Home is supposed to be the place that many of us recover. But home can also become just a long list, an unfinished to-do list. Laundry is waiting, mail is stacking up, clutter on the counter, work spread all across the table, notifications are sounding, television is running, items constantly reminding us of what has not yet been completed. Clutter. That doesn't mean that a cluttered room is destroying your health. Life gets messy. Homes are something that you're supposed to live in. And especially if you have children create freaking chaos as much as we love them. Busy schedules are going to happen. And some people genuinely function well in spaces that others might consider cluttered. I am someone who cannot stand clutter. It is like a thing in my brain that says that something needs to be done. There's an undone task that is just like in the back of your mind at all times when something is cluttered and not organized and not clean. Other people can function perfectly fine. It doesn't bother them at all. But it is worth noticing whether your environment feels restorative to you or whether it continually signals unfinished business. You do not need a perfect home, but maybe there's one surface that you can clear up. One room where work does not follow you. One chair that is not covered in laundry. One table where meals happen without screens. One small area that feels complete and tidy. The goal is not aesthetic perfection. The goal is reducing the number of things silently asking for your attention. Now, there is research suggesting that short breaks during demanding work can reduce fatigue and improve feelings of energy. That matters because self-care does not always require waiting until the weekend. Sometimes it is just a few minutes in between responsibilities. Finish up a Zoom call, stand up, step outside, look into the distance, take a breath, take a sip of water, move your body, stretch your muscles, close your eyes, maybe listen to one song. Let one task end before the next one begins. Micro recovery will not replace sleep. It will not solve burnout created by impossible workloads, but micro recovery, it can interrupt the belief that recovery is only allowed after everything else is finished on Sunday, because everything is rarely finished. There will always be another task. There will always be another message, another responsibility. If you only rest once every problem has been solved, you may never rest. And this leads us to boundaries. We talked about boundaries earlier this week. A boundary is part of your environment. It tells the people, devices, and responsibilities around you, this is where access ends. Maybe that means work email does not enter the bedroom. Maybe the phone does not come to the dinner table. Maybe you do not answer non-urgent messages after a certain hour. Maybe one morning each week stays unscheduled, where you can just have a calm start. Maybe you tell someone, I love you, but I cannot have this conversation while you are speaking to me that way. Maybe you say, I can help tomorrow, but tonight I need to recover. Boundaries are not walls separating you from everyone that you love. Healthy boundaries create doors. Doors can open, doors can close, and you are allowed to participate in deciding who enters, when they enter, and what they are allowed to bring into your space. Now, some people are uncomfortable with boundaries because they fear disappointing other people. They associate availability with being a good person, a nice person. But you can care deeply without giving every person unlimited access to your energy. You can be generous without becoming depleted. You can support others while still protecting the habits that support you. And sometimes saying no to one demand is how you preserve the ability to say yes to the parts of life that matter most to you. Every yes, it costs something. It costs time, attention, energy, presence. So self-care is partly learning to spend those resources deliberately. Your digital environment also follows you into every sanctuary you create. You can sit beside the ocean, but mentally remain inside your email. You can lie in bed, but emotionally remain inside a social media post. You can eat dinner with someone that you love, but direct your attention toward everyone except the person in front of you. That is why changing physical location may not be enough. Sometimes the most restorative environmental decision is deciding what does not get to come with you. Leave the phone behind. Use do not disturb. Turn off the TV. Close the laptop. Take the walk without headphones. Not forever. Just long enough to remember what your own mind sounds like without everyone else speaking into it. I also want to talk about the social environment of self-care. Some relationships, they restore us. Others consistently drain us. And sometimes we remain in draining dynamics for so long that the tension begins feeling normal. We rehearse conversations in advance. We monitor the other person's mood. We shrink parts of ourselves. We leave every interaction feeling exhausted. I'm not suggesting that you immediately cut off every difficult person out of your life. Relationships are complicated. Families are complicated. Work is complicated. And people go through difficult seasons. But your emotional response is still information. Ask yourself, who helps me feel safe enough to be honest? Who celebrates my growth? Who can sit with me without needing me to perform? Who leaves me feeling more like myself? And who consistently leaves me feeling smaller? Your social water matters. Spend as much time as realistically possible around people whose presence helps your nervous system remember that connection can feel safe. At the same time, self-care is not always comfortable. Sometimes taking care of yourself means doing the difficult thing, having the conversation, going to therapy, making the appointment, leaving an unhealthy situation, setting the boundary, cleaning the room, asking for help, going to bed instead of continuing to scroll, preparing for tomorrow, making your future self your best friend, facing the financial problem rather than avoiding it. Self-care is not always soothing. Sometimes it's protective. Sometimes it's courageous. Sometimes it is choosing temporary discomfort to create a long-term, healthier environment. This is why I think a more complete definition of self-care is anything you do intentionally to protect, restore, and strengthen your capacity to live well. Self-care is anything you do intentionally to protect, restore, and strengthen your capacity to live well. Sometimes that looks like rest, sometimes movement, sometimes laughter, sometimes discipline. Sometimes it's solitude, sometimes it's community. Sometimes it's saying yes, and others it's saying no. The form changes, but the purpose of self-care stays the same. You are caring for the person who has to live the rest of your life. So here is your self-care Saturday practice. I'm calling it the environmental self-care reset. The environmental self-care reset. You're going to make 4 small changes. You're not going to rebuild your entire life. You're not going to create a perfect home or a perfect sanctuary. You're going to make 4 small changes. So write this down, get ready. This is what your homework is. Step 1, remove one drain. Remove one drain. Look around your environment and identify one thing that repeatedly takes energy without providing much value. It could be a category of notifications, background news on a TV you rarely watch but just listen to. It could be an account or a client that habitually drains your energy, an account that consistently makes you feel worse. It could be work materials right beside your bed, clutter on the surface of a table that you see every morning, one recurring commitment that you hate and don't look forward to and you no longer think it's necessary. Remove it, move it, silence it, or create a boundary around it. Remove one drain. Step 1. Step 2, create one micro sanctuary. If you do not have one, choose one location, a chair, a corner, a patio, a walking route, your car, the shower. Decide what happens there. Am I going to read, breathe, stretch, listen to calming music? Is it going to be silence, meditation, prayer, tea, drinking tea, or nothing? And then decide what does not happen there. No work, no arguing, no notifications, no multitasking. Make one small space feel different from the rest of your day. Step 2, create one micro sanctuary. Step 3, protect one recovery window of your daily schedule. Choose a realistic amount of time, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Put it on your calendar. Treat it like an appointment, not because relaxation needs to become another productivity task, but because unprotected time tends to be taken by someone else. So step 3, protect one recovery window. Choose a realistic amount of time. Put it on the calendar, treat it like an appointment. Step 4, add one restorative relationship. Call someone, meet someone for a walk, eat together, ask for help. Tell someone the truth about how you're doing. Spend time with a person around who you can lower your guard. Self-care does not always mean being alone. Sometimes another safe human is a sanctuary for you. So remove one drain, create one sanctuary, protect one window, and connect with one person. That is enough for this weekend. And I want to make you a promise. Taking 1 hour for yourself will not cause the entire world to collapse. Sounds silly when I say it like that, but some people tend to treat it like that. Your worth will not decrease because you were briefly unavailable. You will not lose all your progress because you rested. You do not have to earn every breath. You do not have to reach complete exhaustion before recovery becomes justified. You are allowed to take care of yourself while there is still energy left to protect. The goal is not to create a life without responsibility. Responsibility gives life meaning. Work can be meaningful. Coaching can be meaningful. Raising children is definitely meaningful. Serving other people can be meaningful. Building something difficult can be meaningful. The goal is to create enough recovery inside that inside of that meaningful life, that your responsibilities do not consume the person responsible for carrying them. You matter inside the life that you're trying to build. Do not disappear from your own priorities. So for the final time this week, ask yourself, how's the water? Does your environment allow you to recover? Is there anywhere you can stop performing? Does your home contain a place associated with peace? Do your relationships include people around you who you can just exhale and be? Does your calendar contain any space that has not already been claimed? Does your phone go with you and enter every room, every conversation, and every quiet moment? And are you caring for yourself only after life becomes unbearable? Or are you building small forms of restoration into ordinary days? You may not be able to redesign the whole world, but you can create 1 square foot of peace, 1 protected hour, 1 healthier boundary, 1 honest conversation, 1 walk outside, 1 moment where nothing is required from you. Self-care is not only escaping the water, it is learning to make the water that you return to a little healthier, a little quieter, a little more supportive, and a little more like a place where the strongest, healthiest, happiest version of you can live. Take care of your environment. Take care of your energy. And take care of the person that you're becoming. And as always, Dream Team, get stronger, live longer. Thank you for joining me on this Self-Care Saturday episode of the Living the Dream podcast. If this episode inspired you, please share it with a friend who could benefit from what we talked about today. And don't forget to subscribe or comment on the platform that you're using. And take a screenshot of this episode and post it on your social media stories. It's very helpful, a non-cost way to support this podcast and get it into more people's ears. And until next time, friends, keep living the dream.